Daniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me, but I just got home off of an early morning flight, right? First thing through the door, I want to see my family. I love my family. You know, I'm a family man. I'm an advocate for families, right? Second thing, I got to get that hot shower because I got to throw the threads on. The threads make me feel like $1,000,000, but the third thing through my mind and all throughout the trip is that I gotta have that Tej pack. Tej makes my life uncomplicated. It's uncomplicated skincare for men. The first way that I started specifically was their level 1 system. It's a daily face wash to get rid of the dirt and grime on your skin. 2 times per week exfoliating scrub to get rid of the dead skin cells. An AM moisturizer with SPF 20 because you should always be protecting your skin from the sun. And a PM moisturizer to help your skin stay hydrated and healthy throughout the night. Here's the thing. My favorite part about Tej Henley is that every box comes with an instruction card that tells you when to use each product, how much to use, and in what order. They really making the process of achieving and maintaining amazing skin for men uncomplicated. In addition to amazing skin, members of Tej Henley get tons of benefits, including at least 20% off the retail price, the ability to customize your box, exclusive monthly deals, you can pause and cancel at any time, and you get free shipping. And because Tej Henley is sponsoring today's video, they're offering my viewers an amazing deal, right? Just click the first link in the description and you get 30% off your first box, plus a free gift. It's an amazing deal. You got to get started today. You're not out here trying to look like a Dusty. And if you travel as much as I do, which I'm sure most people don't, but you know me, I'm pushing my bag chasers in order to be in the top 5%, top 10%, top 1%. We got to make our lives uncomplicated, and Tej Henley is no better product. You got to look good. You got to smell good. And you can't be looking like a Dusty. Make sure you get started today. Click the link in the description. Get that Tej pack. Feel the Tej, my friends. What's going on? Is Anton from AntonDaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. Thank you for tapping into the Millionaire Morning Show. I am your host, Anton from AntonDaniels.com. It is Tuesday, October 11th, 2022, and we are going to have a phenomenal show. Thank you for everybody that tuned into my other channel, Anton Daniels, in which we live streamed. And we had some conversations, some very, very great conversations. Shout out to Bruiser, shout out to Logic, shout out to Trigger Mike. Shout out to everybody that came up on the panel last night that actually had a conversation. We did it a little bit differently, but we had some conversations, and it was perspective on relationships, successful relationships, getting married early, what's the terms for divorces. We talked about a lot of different things. So if you have not checked out that show, make sure you check it out. It was a great show. We have been killing it on multiple different levels, and it was civil conversation in which we take different people's experiences in order to lean off those so that we can make sure that we continue to level up. Also, shout out to everybody that tapped into the Tej pack, 30% off your first order plus a free gift. We want to always shout out Tej because they are the sponsor of the show. We appreciate you, Tej. And then shout out to everybody that checked out the six interview that we have on a Patreon. So as detailed yesterday, as we release these videos on the Patreon exclusively, and we don't know when they're going to be available for the general public. I have another one dropping this weekend. When we eventually make the clips available for the general public, and then we make the full interview available a couple months from now, then it comes down shortly thereafter. I've already brought down the Charleston White, the first interview that I did with him. And it's only going to exist on a Patreon. So I got a Patreon exclusive video dropping this week, and we breaking down more money, more tips for you to be successful, specifically with the upcoming recession. And when I say recession, I'm talking about a real recession. So I pivoted. I did want to talk about something fun today, and I wanted to go into Dodge and all of that type of stuff. But now I had to pivot, and I want to talk about this upcoming recession in 2023. Will it affect the bag chasers? Probably not as much as everybody else, simply because we are preparing ourselves and we are always in a position to buy and take advantage of when everybody else is falling into a recession. So that's the show that I want to do today. I do want to give you guys an opportunity to be able to cam up and ask me questions if you want to ask me questions. And you know I like to have conversations with people, civil discourse and dialogue. So I plan on dropping that link in the description at some point throughout the show. So make sure that you got your makeup ready, that you ain't got your bonnets on, take your do-rags off. Let's have presentable faces as we jump on the panel and raise our expectations as to how it is that we communicate with each other, right? I love you, so I'm going to make sure that my breath is smelling good, even though I'm only on screen. That I got my Tej pack. I jumped in the shower, right? I got my beard all nice and fluffy, and then my head is shaved and I'm moisturized. So I'm always going to present to you the best version of me to make sure that you feel more comfortable having conversation with me. And so my expectation is for you to do the same. All right. We set new rules, new things that allow for us to have better outcomes and a better representation of what we would want the world to look at us like. Right. I think that that's awesome. So make sure that you tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Peter Investor says student loan forgiveness update, lawsuit filed. I have to check that out. What's going on to all of my friends in the chat? I see Beautiful Disaster, my boy Kojak, Mr. Smith, T Mac. Is that Sharon? Sharon Hammonds. Looks like new affordable housing healthcare center opens for the LGBTQ youth in Detroit. We'll definitely have to check that out. So before we get into the JP Morgan conversation, I want to deep dive right into this, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get into the JP Morgan thing, let me pull this up. Let me see if this is available for me to see. LGBTQ Center Detroit. News. Let's see. Protests. Not in my city. Okay, so hold on. Because I seen them live stream this and I didn't see anything popping. But we're going to make sure that we get past all of the ads before we get into it. It's going to be a phenomenal show. And again, I'm going to drop the link in the description for you guys to be able to cam up. Right now, make sure you tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. And if you need to kick it with me personally, email me at antondaniels413@gmail.com. So let's get straight into the show, ladies and gentlemen. No need in wasting time. See what we got here. Detroit's Ruth Ellis Center for LGBT ABCDEFG. Let me move myself over here. Youth in Need opens its doors. Interesting. Is this the one? Affordable Housing and Health Center opens for... Interesting. Okay, so let's go through it. A new $16 million ground up Ruth Ellis Claremont Center in Detroit is finally opening after 7 years of planning and development. How come I wasn't aware of this? I know everything that's going up in the city. I knew nothing about this whatsoever. The building was a collaboration between the Ruth Ellis Center and Full Circles. This is distracting. And Full Circles Communities. I don't really care. Okay, I can't close that apparently. Lots of ads. Anyway, the building was a collaboration between the Ruth Ellis Center and Full Circle Communities, Inc. Health and Wellness Center at Claremont will be staffed by healthcare workers who specialize in caring for the LGBTQ plus community. Let me just make sure. Will be staffed by these people. All right, so this is what it's telling us. Before we get started, so I'm wondering first, before we really get into the show, what is the requirement for staffing a health center that specializes in the alphabet community? Just a question. What is healthcare workers specializing in caring for the LGBTQ plus community? What does that mean? Does that mean that you have to have special training? Does that mean that they're that themselves? Does it mean that they I don't know. Are they better than and more specialized than regular healthcare workers? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. If you are just joining the stream, we're talking about first, Detroit is opening a center that specializes in housing and special health needs of the LGBTQ. Jesus Christ. It's getting worse. Kanye was right. Kanye was right. By the time that y'all realize that Kanye was right, it's going to be too late. Partnership with Henry Ford Health provides support in this area. According to youth.gov, these youth are much more likely to experience homelessness and represent up to 40% of homeless young people because of factors like rejection and abuse. Come on, man. Come on, man. Stop it, bro. I'm from Detroit. I've done a lot of volunteer work specifically centered around homelessness, and it has nothing to do with that at all. That will be a beacon for young people and allies in the city of Detroit. Today is a statement. Detroit want to be like Atlanta so bad. Oh my God. Detroit want to be like Atlanta so bad. We just follow in the footsteps of all of the bad actors, and we say, hey, San Francisco, we like what you got going over there. Let's go ahead and get some doodle on our streets. Atlanta, we like all of the third world STI and STD rates that you have going on in your centers. Let me go ahead and make sure that we be like you also. Today is a statement of values for the city of Detroit. Mayor Mike Duggan said the development features 43 units of. Wow. You know what's so funny? I drove by this multiple times and I thought that they had just built like a new housing, just like new apartments and new condos or whatever like that, because it's right there down towards downtown Detroit. And I was thinking, yo, that's a dope building. I'd want to check that out and see what the vibes is over there. Now I know that if I was to be going over there, man, I did not know that. 43 units of permanent supportive housing. So we have a housing crisis in the United States of America. But we're building housing specifically for these people. You know what the funny part about this is? Men are the ones that are left out. Do you know that there's only like 2 centers for homelessness for men, specifically designated for men in the United States of America? Did you know that? They may have added one more in the entire United States, but there's only like 2 units for housing in the United States of America. They built 43 units of permanent supportive housing, a community health center, and a wellness center, and community spaces designed to address barriers that the alphabet community young people experience in accessing houses and other vital services. They will see it as a safe space. There's a resource library. Wow. We can't even get our schools up to snuff. We can't get our schools up to snuff. They have a resource library, a technology center, a career training and event space, a roof deck, an art studio, a private patio, and raised beds for gardening. Wow. That is impressive. Let's go to ruthelliscenter.org. Oh, man. Oh, man. Who are we? Look at this foolishness, y'all. Oh, man. 6 was right. 6 was right about masculinity. I don't know what's what anymore. I don't. Oh, well. I guess there goes the neighborhood. Let me see. Protesters Shut down Dearborn School Board meeting over LGBTQ books. It is going bad in Detroit. So, anyways, thank you guys for informing me and giving me some insight and information on what the heck is going on in society. Everything continues to go bad. Thank you. Thank you, all of our mayors, our governors, former presidents. Thank you to all of our legislative branches, our Congress, our House of Representatives. Thank you, guys. Thank you to everybody that continues to participate in creating a safe space for our alphabet community. Meanwhile, the men in our community, you know what all right, so let's move on because I don't want to beat a dead horse. We've already spent way too much time on that. There is a recession coming. And I'm not talking about the current version of what you think a recession is right now. There is a recession coming, and it is going to be bad. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Well, at least that's what thought leaders and the CEO specifically of JP Morgan Chase Bank is speaking about today, right? And so I want to have conversations with you guys about this because I think it's important for you to be proactive in understanding what's coming so that you'll be in a position of power instead of a position of duress. I want to get into the videos. I'm going to break down a couple different videos. I have not watched them. I've seen about 20 seconds of the first one, and I said, okay, well, we got to have a conversation about this because we got to pivot away from modern women. We got to pivot away from Kanye West. We got to pivot away from all of the other stuff that's happening in society to make sure that your money right. Because when your money is not right, nobody is going to be happy. All right. So let me get into the video and then we're going to break it down from there. Let's see what we got. Where is it at? Where is it at? Is that it? Is this it? All right.
So I think you got to put two things in mind here. Currently, right now, the U.S. economy is actually still doing well. Consumers have money, fiscal stimulus. They still have more than they had before. They're spending 10% more than last year, 35% more than pre-COVID. Their balance sheets are in great shape. Yes, debt's gone up a little bit, but not nearly to pre-COVID levels. And therefore, even if we go into recession, they're going to be in much better shape than 08 and 09. Companies are in good shape. Credit's very good. Markets are still open, though rocky and stuff like that. But you can't talk about the economy without talking about the stuff in the future. And this.
So I'm gonna break this down. I want to see the full clip before we go into it. This clip, or most of the clip, this clip is only 2 minutes long. So we're gonna watch it and then we're gonna rewind it and we're gonna break it down because I want you to understand what he's saying from a C student's perspective. But it is very important what it is that he's saying because he is the CEO of the largest bank in the United States of America, as far as I know, as far as deposits are concerned. But let's continue.
This is serious stuff, okay? This is inflation, which obviously is, changing the effect of those numbers I just told you about. It's rates going up more than people expected already, and probably a little bit more from here. It's QT, which we've never had before. So therefore, the unknown effects, and you see it today in bond markets around the world and sovereign markets and people selling U.S. Treasury debt, and it's the war. And these are very, very serious things, which I think are likely to push the U.S. And the world. I mean, Europe is already in a recession, and they're likely to put U.S. in some kind of recession 6 to 9 months from now.
6 to 9 months from now, we're gonna go back. We're gonna break this down. I do want to let y'all marinate on that for a second, and then we're gonna break it down all the way.
Do see the U.S. go into recession. How severe do you expect it to be, and how long do you expect it could last?
Yeah, well, this is the thing no one ever really knows, right? You do have a strong consumer going into it. Businesses are in pretty good shape, but they were amazingly resilient during COVID. Even the ones that had no government support and stuff like that. And I think governments did do a hell of a job to recover. So we don't know. I mean, now you have to look at the range of outcomes.
Appreciate you,
It can go from very mild to quite hard, and a lot will rely on what happens to this war. So I think to guess is hard. Be prepared. But the one guarantee, which we've been consistent about, is volatile markets. You're going to have volatile markets. You've already seen markets down quite a bit. No IPOs, very little high yield, bridge loans being hung and stuff like that, which is pretty typical. But it's still been orderly. I think it's possible you're going to see it be disorderly sometime in not too near future.
How do you?
So before we finish this, let's rewind this. Let's rewind this real quick. All right.
So I think you
Let's break this down because I don't want you guys to skip over this. It's not as enticing as a modern woman conversation. It's not as phenomenal as Umar Johnson and breaking down what he feels about transgender issues over in California. I don't care what anybody says. Let me help you to understand why this is so important. At the end of the day, when you don't have any money and then you don't have any opportunity to go and get money and you have to start losing everything that you have, nobody is going to be happy. I'll tell you this, and this is one thing for sure and two things for certain. When the money get tight, nobody cares about whether white lives or black lives matters anymore. Nobody cares about how you feel about transgender issues. Nobody cares about the current rapper that get killed. Nobody cares about nothing except for getting that bag back right, which is why we identify ourselves as the bag chasers. Because it's not just about making money, it's about being the best version of yourself, understanding that the money comes with it. Okay, that's why you need to tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. If you need to kick it with me personally, email me at antondaniels413@gmail.com. You can't even have sex right when you cold. She don't get as wet when she's cold because there is no heat. I've never been homeless. I've worked with a lot of homeless people. I will tell you that people are living paycheck to paycheck that are making six figures. Most people that are making six figures are living paycheck to paycheck. This is nothing to play with. I remember the 2008 recession. I was able to move back into my parents' basement. I was very, very, very grateful for the opportunity to move back in my parents' basement. I was blessed. A lot of y'all like, oh yeah, Anton was dusty in 2008. No, I was blessed to be able to move into my parents' basement with a wife and a newborn daughter on the way. I was really, really blessed. It was bad for a lot of people. A lot of people deleted themselves back in the 2008, 2007, 2008 recession. It was so bad. It was so bad. Let me tell you how bad it was in 2008. Okay. In 2008, it was so bad that I seen people practically fighting over the flower guy suit that stand on the corner with the sign with the arrow like, hey, come buy flowers from us. It was a mask, it was a costume, and it was out here in the suburbs in a very nice area. And people were lining up and fighting for a job to get in that bunny suit to be able to hold up that thing. That's how bad it was. See, y'all privileged and y'all are incredibly spoiled. And so you don't really know. A lot of y'all are too young because I'm 40. A lot of y'all truly don't know what it feels like to not have a dime to your name, don't have an unemployment benefit that come along and save you, and certainly don't have any kind of job prospects. You have no clue whatsoever. And you know that the man is going to come and get your car. And he going to come and get your other car. You have no clue. Let me tell you how dedicated I was after I went broke and why it was necessary for me to stay down for 10 years. Even after I had got all of the money back and had got rich, I was still chilling in my mom's basement. Let me tell you why, bro. Listen, we gonna have a real talk, okay? I went and I said, you know what? I'm not going to take no money out of my portfolio. I'm not going to take no money out of my 401k. It was the best decision that I ever made in my life. I said, I'm willing to get these cars up. I'm going to take the last cash that I have and I'm going to buy a car. I am literally going to buy a car cash. They can have these cars. They can have the car notes that go along with them, so on and so forth. This is like 07, 08. I went to the auction. I bought a red Cadillac STS. A lot of y'all don't know nothing about that. Here in Detroit, we about Cadillacs. It was a nice, listen, I drove that car. I was so down for the cause and I have the lasting effects. It's almost like PTSD. I have the lasting effects of the recession in my mind from '08 so much that back then I drove that car to almost 300,000 miles. I did sales in that car. I had got rich in that car. I had wound up getting money. That car was so worn out by the time I got done with it. And I refused to buy a new car. My brother made me buy a new car. That car was so worn out. The window didn't work on the passenger side. The door didn't work on the driver's side. I had to get in through the passenger side, through the door, in order to get into the car. And it literally was dying. It died by the time I pulled up to the house, and I still sold it on Craigslist. I know y'all know nothing about Craigslist. Y'all on Facebook Marketplace and all of that. I was like, yo, I don't care what happened. I am going to sit down and make sure that I get everything. I was buying real estate. I was buying properties. I was putting everything I had into buying the stocks and the things and studying. I spent all of my extra time on my businesses and in the library. I was working. I mean, I had 2 jobs. I was making over $200,000 a year just on my full-time jobs. And I had my businesses. And I was funding my 401k double matching at the University of Michigan, killing that. I was killing it in every way possible. And I was riding a car. When y'all say stuff like, yeah, rich people, they dress down, that was me. I was dressed up. I would park 3 blocks away. I would walk over to the office like I lived in Ann Arbor. I would walk over to the office. That way ain't nobody have to see me getting in my car on the passenger side through the door. And I was getting them bags. I was busting down bags and checks. I know what it was like to have nothing, to lose everything. And that's why, see, you can't look at me and say, well, Anton, you don't know what it's like to do this. You don't know what. No, I've been through both sides. I know what it's like to be poor and to be rich and to be poor again and then get richer. I know all of it. I know all of it. I know what it's like to take a 100% commission sales job because it ain't nothing out there. And you go out there and you hustle and you work and you eat what you kill. Ain't no safety net. Ain't no unemployment. Ain't none of that. You go in, you get hazed. They try to nag you out in order to try to filter through the ones that's able to make it and not in the sales game. And you go out there and you kill it every single day to the point to where it was salt in my shoes and then my feet was hurting every single day. And then I had to make sure I did extra sales just to make sure, because I knew my shoes was going to be worn out, but I still had to make myself presentable for the customers. Oh, I know what it's like to hustle and grind. I didn't get to where I got to because somebody gave me something. I see the little rumors out there. Anton was a trust fund baby. Anton was this. Nah, Anton was a hustler. Anton grind. Anton went out and got it by any means necessary. No sleep, go and get it. I don't care what everybody else is talking about. And then after I stayed down for 10 years, I started spending some money. Anton was a hustler. So much so that when I bought my first Rolex watch, and it's on YouTube, it's on YouTube when I bought my first Rolex watch, I didn't even want to buy the watches. I'm like, yo, have I been down long enough? Did I get it long enough? Did I hustle long enough? Did I make it long enough? And the people around me was like, yo, you got everything. Go and get it and reward yourself. You have been faithful. You have hit every single milestone that you said you wanted to hit. You have crossed the threshold of what you said you felt like was rich. Go and get your first watch. And then I spent like $10,000 on my first Submariner. And I was happy about that. It was a milestone moment. Every watch that I have is a milestone moment. It's not a stunt. Every watch that I have, all my Rolexes, every watch was a milestone moment. You don't know nothing about that. You don't know nothing about building a building from scratch with your own money. You don't know nothing about building a business from scratch with your own money, putting $114,000 of cash, hard-earned cash of your own money into building a business so that you can not only fortify making sure that the community was taken care of, but fulfill your father's dreams because he always wanted one. It's funny because I'm telling y'all stories I've never told before. When I built my first restaurant, I didn't build it for me. I built it for my father because it was a part of my thanks for him letting me stay in his basement, giving everything that I needed in order to be successful when I was coming up, and then helping to fund him into my mom's retirement. That's why I built it. And I was uninspired to finish it once he died because he died in the middle of me building it. That's why I started getting into why I built that, because it was his dream. It wasn't my dream. You don't know nothing about sacrifice. You don't know nothing about putting your own money up. You don't know nothing about nothing except for complaining and whining and running in the Victim Olympics. I'm sorry that this turned into a rant. You know how I do it. I can't help what I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to say on a regular basis. You don't know nothing about this life. You don't know nothing about nothing except for... Hold on. Give me a sec. You don't know nothing about this life, bro. You don't know nothing about staying down and taking care of your kids even when things get rough. You make it work because you know it's in the best interest of your kids. You too busy whining about women and talking about how she preventing you from seeing your kid. You don't know nothing about making sacrifices. You don't know nothing about going back into the mud and getting 2 jobs and then going to school full time at the same time. And then while you on one job on lunch, you doing your homework in order to become a software engineer and going to community college, all while you got people in your ear talking about what you ain't and what you can't do and how you ain't going to be successful and you nothing. You don't know nothing about that. You don't know nothing about getting money and then losing it and people laughing at you. All you know is complaining and whining about what the government ain't going to give you. All you know is whining about what Biden ain't gonna do for you. All you know is complaining about your baby mama. All you know is being weak. That's all you know is weakness. You are feminine. You are a sucker. You don't know what it takes in order to carry a community on your back. You ain't never did no volunteer work every single Saturday morning for 2 years straight just because you truly wanted to pour into people. You don't know nothing about funding the initiatives of 14 young guys from ages 14 to 24 to make sure that they taking care of and giving them jobs. You don't know nothing about pouring into other people. You don't know nothing about really going through what a recession takes. Or you always been coddled and taken care of your whole life. And that's why you ain't the man that you supposed to be. That's why your chick don't respect you. That's because they know they can't depend on you. And you need a woman's resources in order for you to survive. It ain't the other way around. You interdependent on her. You don't know nothing about going through the mud. You don't know nothing about actually building and taking care of your parents because your parents been taking care of you your whole life. I built it for my mom, my mother-in-law. Everybody that's ever touched or participated in my life will never need or want for anything. You don't know nothing about, listen, I built my own restaurants. I built my own web development companies. I built my own businesses from scratch with no funding and nobody helping me. Just me putting it together myself. It's a difference between us. You're not built like me at all. You don't know what it feels like to go through it. That's why you ain't the man that you're supposed to be. Listen, I got a scar under my arm. Is it this one or is it this one? I don't know if it's this one. I got a scar under my arm. When I was building my restaurant, I fell off the roof. Way up, 20-foot roof. Fell off the roof. My dad was over there like, oh my God, what's going on? Fell off the roof because I was building it myself. We was putting up the cold air intake. I got up, went to the hospital, got stitched up, and got back on the roof the same day. I'm a monster when it comes to what it is that I'm supposed to do. I'm a monster when it comes to sales. I'm a monster when it comes to getting that bag. I'm a monster when it comes to working. That's why I don't care. I don't care about nothing. I don't care about what people think. I am on a path to greatness, and you are going to step on this path with me. One way or another, you're going to hear me and you're going to move in a direction that you're supposed to go into. And we're not going to make no excuses. I'm going to play this video and we're going to talk about the recession. But what you ain't going to do is you ain't going to sit here and make excuses for why you can't make it when you go through this recession, because I'm already warning you that it's coming in 2023. If you're not proactive, not only to be able to survive through it, but also to be able to take advantage of it and get really rich as a result, then you are doing me a disservice, because now you are a representation of me. Because I don't want you sitting there talking about, yo, I watch Anton from AntonDaniels.com, or I'm a bag chaser. And then you over here looking dusty because you're not a reflection of what bag chasers are supposed to be. Right? You know what? Dog. Let me tell you something. Let me really give it to you, right? Because I'm going to tell you something that you ain't never heard before. Do you know what it's like to stand in a line for food at a soup kitchen or to get cans and meals in order to make sure that you got enough food to last through the week? You don't know nothing about this life. Trust fund, baby. Trust fund, baby. Boy, you have no clue at all. You don't know what it's like to work sales in the morning and then work Home Depot overnight and making sure that you stock all of that wood on them shelves. And then you making sure that you go into classes because they didn't have online classes as much as you needed them to in the afternoon. You don't know nothing about that, bro. You don't know what it's like to stay up for 4 days straight because you don't have a day off until the weekend, and you got to make sure that your daughter is straight, and you got to make sure you funding her 429. You don't know nothing about this life. How dare you ever compare yourself to a monster like me? I will destroy you and spit you out of my mouth. You not built like this, bro. At all. We different. Let's get into this show. You don't know nothing about standing in a line for a soup kitchen. You don't know nothing about that. At all. How dare you ever compare yourself to me, boy? We ain't the same. We ain't the same.
So I think you got to put two things in mind here. Currently, right now, the U.S. economy is actually still doing well. Consumers have money, fiscal stimulus. They still have more than they had before. They're spending 10% more than last year, 35% more than pre-COVID. Their balance sheets are in great shape. Yes, debt's gone up a little bit, but not nearly to pre-COVID levels.
What he's telling you is that it's all a facade right now. Not in a facade and that the economy is not healthy enough to be able to sustain itself and that you can have a job right now, but it's a facade and thinking that you're safe because there are jobs and there is enough stimulus in order to be able to get you through. And even though there's inflation because they printing a lot of money and they making sure that they continue to give you a lot of these government handouts and you having a hard time being able to service your loans and be able to feed yourself and all of that, it's not safe because it's going to get worse before it gets better. This is the CEO of a bank, JP Morgan Chase Bank. He's telling you that there is going to be more gnashing of teeth because it is not as safe as you think it is just because you're still working. A lot of companies are giving you the precursor and the warning in that you need to hold on, get rid of the consumer debt, remove yourself from living this life that you can't really support for people that don't care nothing about you in order to prepare yourself. And when I say prepare yourself, I'm not telling you to prepare yourself just for being able to survive because we don't believe in that. We don't believe in living out of duress or survival. We live in abundance, and it's a difference. And abundance means that when you suffer, I'm coming for your stuff because I'm going to buy it for pennies on a dollar. That's what abundance means. He's breaking this down, and I'm going to give it to you from a C student's perspective, but he's going to give it to you from the CEO's perspective, in which he has to speak to the boardroom and CNBC in order to substantiate what it is that he's saying. Let's continue.
And therefore, even if we go into recession, they're going to be in much better shape than 08 and 09. Companies are in good shape. Credit's very good. Markets are still open, though rocky and stuff like that. But you can't talk about the economy without talking about the stuff in the future. And this is serious stuff, okay? This is inflation, which obviously is changing the effect of those numbers I just told you about. It's rates going up more than people expected already, and probably a little bit more from here.
You were not ready for inflation, and I was warning you. I warned you the same way that I'm warning you about 2023. Is the same way that I've been warning you for an extended period of time. You were not ready for inflation. You was not ready for a 40-year high inflation. Now you go to the grocery store and you can't even be able to feed yourself, and you were not ready. You aren't ready now. If you have not joined the Bag Chasers, if you have not booked the coaching call, if you're not paying attention and making adjustments based off of this free information that I give you every single morning, you are not ready. And it is going to get worse. You know why? Because they have to stem inflation because we don't want to become Venezuela. They have to tighten the credit markets, which then means that there's no money for companies to be able to do startups. There's no money for you to be able to, or let me revise that. The cost of doing business is going to be much higher. You can't even get a house anymore because you can't make the payments. you can't even get a credit card anymore because it's very difficult for you to be able to service the loan, which then puts you in a position where you got to beg for Biden to give you forgiveness on your student loans, and that's not even guaranteed for you.
It's QT, which we've never had before. So therefore, the unknown effects, and you see it today in bond markets around the world and sovereign markets and people selling U.S. Treasury debt, and it's the war. And these are very, very serious things, which I think are likely to push the U.S. And the world. I mean, Europe is already in a recession.
We're so interconnected as an economy, and this I'm breaking this down from a C student's perspective. Okay, we're so interconnected as an economy that you can't just look at what's happening over in Ukraine and say, not my business, or nice protest, or ooh, I'm gonna just skip by the news and it'd be something. No. Everything that happens in the world economy, because we're so interconnected, becomes a butterfly effect or a trickle-down effect. And it affects you just as much as it affects the next person that is, not as much as over there in Ukraine, but see, over in Europe, they're already suffering and they're already going through a recession and preparing for a cold winter. You know why? Because the energy market is in turmoil. And the energy market is in turmoil because of the war in Russia. And then Russia is saying that I want to cut off everything that's happening in these other countries that we then supply, which is why you see the United States of America in such a rush to move everything back to America. You think that America cares about you, and that's why they're bringing jobs back to the U.S. We have the semiconductor chip shortage and different industries, and then we still have the tariff war going on with China that Trump started and Biden continued, but don't want to champion that Trump was right about the tariff war in the first place and becoming less dependent on foreign entities. You think that we're rushing to the EV market because of a transformation in the industry? We're rushing to the EV market because we want to be less dependent on foreign oil in order for us to be able to carry on life here in the United States of America, which then means that we have to bring more jobs because more jobs are going away because technology is so transformational in that internal combustion engines and all of the different parts and the suppliers that then supply these larger companies and the logistics that's going along with it, as far as us having to get parts from around the world in the North American Free Trade Agreement. The problem is that now companies want tighter controls of what happens within their companies because they no longer want to be dependent on other companies worldwide or within the United States of America in order to control the domestic gross or the products that they putting out on a regular basis. Even Apple is moving a lot of their operations to other countries, including India, from China. Because now as China continues to catch up from a financial perspective, even though they're in way more turmoil than they want to admit, right? Their housing market and their housing crash is so forthcoming. If you can't see that, you a blind man. They want to be less dependent on these other countries in order to make sure that they have control over what happens within the United States of America and you as a consumer. And so you've been sold the bill of goods and you didn't understand that the Build Back Better plan was a way for them to fund more infrastructure and growth within the United States of America, not because they cared about you, but because they cared about them. And this is why it's important for you to understand policy, because policy then affects money. And then money affects you because then it affects how it is that you're going to live your life on a regular basis. It determines whether or not you're going to be paying this or that at the gas station, whether or not you're going to be paying this or that at the supermarket. It determines whether or not you'll be able to travel, how much you're going to get paid at your job. You thought that it was about your protest and you asking for $15 an hour. It wasn't. Nobody cared about your $15 an hour. They did not care anything about you. They did it because it actually affected how it was that they wanted to do business. And there's lobbyists and large companies that are playing a larger role in what's happening in the economy than you think that they are. And you think that your voice is being heard, but you don't even know, because the reason why you voted was based off of how somebody looked and whether they was black or not, instead of voting based off of understanding the policies and who was in their pockets. You didn't know who was funding their PACs. We getting a little too deep. Anton is getting a little too deep. I appreciate you for continuing to support me on Cash App too. Let me also acknowledge this super chat. Jordan Smith says, Anton, I'm glad you went through that back in '08 because now in 2022, you teaching the bag chasers how to get ahead in life. Listen and apply the game from the Patreon, folks. The link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Thank you, Jordan, for supporting the platform and everybody that continues to rock with me.
And they're likely to put U.S. in some kind of recession 6-9 months from now.
If we do see the U.S. go into recession, how severe do you expect it to be and how long do you expect it could last?
Yeah, well, this is the thing no one ever really knows, right? You do have a strong consumer.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows how long it's going to last. Nobody knows how long it's going to last. But let's continue.
We're going into it. Businesses are in pretty good shape, but they were amazingly resilient during COVID. You know, even the ones that had no government support and stuff like that. And I think governments did do a hell of a job getting the thing to recover. So we don't know. I mean, now you have to look at the range of outcomes. It can go from very mild to quite hard, and a lot will rely on what happens to this war. So I think to guess is hard. Be prepared. But the one guarantee, which we've been consistent about, is volatile markets. You're going to have volatile markets. You've already seen markets down quite a bit. No IPOs, very little high yield, bridge loans being hung and stuff like that, which is pretty typical, but it's still been orderly. I think it's possible you're going to see it be disorderly sometime in not too near future.
Volatile markets. What are we talking about as far as volatility in the markets? You're talking about cryptocurrency. You're talking about the stock market. You're talking about real estate. You're talking about lumber prices. You're talking about literally jobs, startups, small business funding, everything. Listen, you thought he was just talking about the stock market, which he is. When he's saying that, all you got to do in order to truly get a pulse on what's going on in the markets is to figure out how many IPOs do we have. IPOs meaning initial public offerings. An initial public offering is a company going public. So let's say you have a startup, right? For example, let's take an older company. Let's take an Uber, let's take a Peloton, all of these older companies, right? And when they go public, they're usually looking to cash in and raise money in order to sustain the business and then make the public an investor in the company versus just staying private and looking for money to continue to fund their operations in the first place, right? And so when you see that there are no initial public offerings, that means that there's true volatility in the market because there is no money for these companies to really go public at the time that they go public because they're going to, in their eyes, be undervalued. And so they then look for funding from other companies, similar to how Amazon is investing in a lot of these other companies, or they bought into Rivian. Now, Rivian did an IPO at a time that it was beneficial for them to do an IPO, but it doesn't mean that their stock price didn't go down as a result of the volatility in the markets. Basically, what he's telling you is that there's going to be more blood. There's going to be more blood for those that don't know, and you day traders, good luck with that because y'all gonna catch a heck of a headache. But for those that look at it like me, there will be more opportunity. There's going to be blood for y'all that's not bag chasers, and there's going to be opportunities for us because the recessions and when things get bad is when people get really, really rich. Recessions are when people start gnashing at the teeth and then others get rich. I'm warning you now. I'm giving you the game right now. It's coming straight from the horse's mouth.
How do you think the Fed is doing in managing this whole situation?
Well, let me give them credit for what they did in COVID. And I hate to second guess people because I think it's easy for everyone to do. In hindsight, they waited too long and did too little, and QT should have started sooner and all that. But they're clearly catching up. They're clearly motivated to catch up. And from here, let's all wish them success and keep our fingers crossed that they manage to slow down the economy enough that it doesn't, to cause whatever it is mild. And it's possible. I wouldn't take that off. I think that, like I said, the far more serious thing is this war. Far more serious than the short-term effect of the economy and things like that. It is it's a day that's going to live in infamy. And, it's Pearl Harbor, it's Czechoslovakia, and it's really an attack on the Western world. A free democratic European nation was attacked by 3,000 tanks in Europe, with a nuclear threat umbrella. It's a devastating war. We don't know the outcome. We don't know the outcome of most wars. And of course, it's rolling oil markets, food markets, and it's changing everyone's mind about national security around everything, whether it's food, energy, technology, et cetera. It's a chance for the Western world to get its act together.
He said a mouthful and y'all not even paying attention to it. You thought he was talking about the war, but he really talking about our pockets. Let me tell y'all something. If you think, even for a second, and this is just my personal opinion, this is not my personal opinion. I am not a financial advisor or none of that, right? If you believe that we truly care about the people of Ukraine, that the majority of people, business leaders, government leaders, if you think that we care about the people of Ukraine, you are insane at all. We don't care at all, not even a little bit. Let me tell you something. There has been wars and warring across the world, including different parts of Africa, that has never stopped. There has been civil wars, there has been international wars since the beginning of time, and they're still killing each other to today. Now think about it. Why are we so concerned about Ukraine, but we were never concerned about what was happening in every other continent in the world, including Africa? I mean, there's literally been silencing of, yo, they over here taking our little girls and doing what they want to them. They chopping off arms. Listen, arms dealers have been making more money in Africa than any other nation in the world since the beginning of time. What makes you think that they care about international affairs unless it affects their pocketbooks? Their allies and their pocketbooks. If you think this is about caring about the people in Ukraine, you are sadly mistaken. You know what people care about? Some way, somehow, this is going to hit people's pocketbooks. This is going to mess up people's monies. And if you are not making the adjustment, if you are not paying attention to the bigger picture, and you think that this is about humanity, it never has been. If it was about humanity, then we wouldn't be building and championing and highlighting the worst things for us, including, and I'm not even talking about the Black community, I'm talking about culture in general. Think about it. The strongest way for you to build wealth in your households or your wealth in your community is by having strong households. What makes you think that feminism, the alphabet community, the highest taxes in the nation over in California and New York, if you think that this is about humanity, you are sadly mistaken. This is about money. It always comes back to the money. Listen, you need to go and watch The Wire. The Wire is one of the most phenomenal series in history. And it wasn't just because of the action. It wasn't just because of the real life depiction of what happened over in Baltimore. It's a reflection of how we operate as a society. And the way that they truly started to deep dive into that series, it wasn't because of the drug trade or who was the players. It wasn't because of Marlowe. It wasn't because of whatever his name is, Idris Elba. What was his name in The Wire? Forgot his name in The Wire. It wasn't because of all of those dudes, right? It was because of what was happening on the docks and the Greeks and the politicians. And when they started to follow the money, when they started to break down that in the series, you truly started to see what the real issues in society was. All of the dudes that was dealing drugs were small players. They were pawns. They were big fish in a little pond, and the only people that admired them and loved them were the people in the neighborhood. It's similar to the Black community today. Stringer Bell and Avon Barksdale. Thank you, guys. The difference is that let me parallel this for you, and then I'm gonna bring it back to what he's talking about on this panel, right? The difference is that, matter of fact, let me also drop a link in the chat for y'all to be able to cam up and have a conversation and ask questions if you guys so see fit. I'm gonna drop that link for y'all really quickly. Boom. We there. I'm going to break this down for y'all because I know that y'all like metaphors. Y'all like rappers. We're going to break this down for y'all. All right. The link is pinned to the top of the chat. If you got a comment, question, you want to ask me any money question, you got a disagreement with me, so on and so forth. Let me tell you, the way that the people in the hood celebrated, because those were the consumers and the buyers of the drugs and the ones that were participating in the economy, as far as the dealers, the killers, the robbers, the drug users, and even the civilians that were impacted by what was happening in the communities of Baltimore when the drug dealing was going on. It's the same way that we champion and celebrate the things that are worse for us in the Black community, including the rappers. Think about it. They are a small fish. Though most of those dudes are broke. Your favorite rapper is broke, family. Trust and believe it. Broke. I'm gonna turn on the link. The link. I'm sorry. Anybody that want to come up and have this conversation, you can now. Your favorite rapper is broke. They are pawns. And so when I tell you to divest yourself from the worst thing for you, it's so that you can then, when you step back, right? Because if you're in the jungle or you're in the woods or I went hiking during the pandemic, but I also had a drone, right? And when you there, you can't see anything but the trees and the leaves and the little bugs and the creatures and the people that you're walking with around you. But when you step back and you divest yourself from the worst things for you, what happens is you start to become more informed because you got a better view of what the whole goal is in the first place. You can see the paths to get out, right? But you got to take a step back. You can see the toxicity around you and you can see where the water is. And if you know where water is, then that means that you can then start to build a better community and a civilization for yourself. And it's the same thing that's happening here. We're so focused on these stupid Black Lives Matters organization and these women that's stealing every single day. I literally just pulled up an article today. Check this out. Check this out. We're going to bring it all full circle. Get this off my screen. Where is it at? Here you go. I literally just pulled this up today. Black Lives Matters founder Patrice Cullors allegedly spent thousands in backyard renovations for her $1.4 million home. October 10th, this came out. I literally just pulled this up today. Came out yesterday. We're so concerned with whether or not Black lives really matters that you don't really understand what's affecting your household, your communities, and what's killing you because you're so focused on supporting this hussy that you don't get what the real big picture is. And so when Anton try to break it down in small bite-sized pieces for you so that you can then divest yourself, and I say it every day, hey, divest yourself from the things that's worse for you. Your family ain't necessarily the people that was blood with you. Your family is the people that's going in the direction that you're going in. Yo, this is the stuff that you want to focus on. Hey, it's important for you to not even think about $40,000 or $50,000 being a lot of money. I'm Mr. Miyagi in you. I'm telling you, wax on, wax off. And you sitting here fighting me, and I'm actually having your best interest at heart, but you won't even follow the lessons that come along with the growth so that you can then divest yourself and then really empower your community. And I say it all the time. I say, yo, how is it that the people that are blackity black are so pro-black, but they are the worst for the community and the person that is not blackity black and rock based off of character is actually doing the thing that's best for the community? Why do you think that is? How come nobody has ever asked that question and asked me to substantiate that argument and that statement that I make on a regular basis? I'll tell you why. Is because they're not prepared for the answer. And once you unlock yourself, just like the Matrix, just like the whole red pill narrative, taking a red pill when you get to see how far down deep in the rabbit hole goes, you can't come back, and you want to hold on to this bad thing that is for you, which is killing you, it's killing your family, it's killing your pocketbooks. And I'm trying to give you a better way for you to go about operating, but you don't want to do so because you think that this is based off of Black lives, and it's not. There's an agenda. And as long as you follow the money, you will start to understand exactly how deep the rabbit hole goes. And this comes back to exactly what my man was saying. Here, let's resume the last video.
You know, the autocratic world thinks
Let's pause that. Let me get to the super chats. I appreciate you. Big Smoke says, this is exactly why I've been rocking with Anton since his high roller lifestyle and urban exploration videos. Keep speaking the truth in the face of this BS out here, brother. Big Smoke, I appreciate you, bro. I am going to keep preaching the word. I'm going to keep bringing the information until they say, Anton, you're exposing a little bit too much information, and we don't want them to see how deep the rabbit hole goes. I appreciate you. Thank you for the $25 super chat, my friend. Let's get it. Think about it, y'all. They sold y'all a narrative. Dope dealers don't even make no money, bro. They're below minimum wage. They're risking their life every day. And they doing it just for the clout. You better off going to get a regular everyday job and you will be much more successful than your average dope dealer financially. Just mathematically, it doesn't make sense. Let's continue.
Western world's a little lazy and incompetent. There's a little bit of truth to that. This is the chance to get our act together and to solidify the Western free, democratic, capitalist, free people, free movements, freedom of speech, freedom of religion for the next century. Because if we don't get this one right, that kind of chaos you can see around the world for the next 50 years.
There have been a lot of Lehman comparisons made in recent weeks and months with regards to the fallout from the energy crisis. You are the only...
You do realize that Russia is literally starting to starve out other countries and threatening to raise the prices and even pull back on the amount of energy and electricity and oil and gas that's being pumped to other countries in order to make sure that they are suffering the fate that comes along with them. And then it's all backed by the possibility of Russia having a nuclear threat that they can then impose on Ukraine and other countries. It's crazy. It is crazy. And it all comes back down to the money.
Wall Street CEO who is around to navigate the global financial crisis. How worried are you about Europe this winter, given everything that's going on in Ukraine and with the energy supply?
Yeah, well, I think we're getting energy completely wrong, which is, ever since this war started, you've known that Europe was going to have a problem, and that it was pretty predictable that Putin was going to cut off some gas and certain oil, and oil price would go up.
I just said that. I literally just said that. I just said that. And so what is the solution? It's a twofold solution that the United States of America is trying to implement, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to have the EV conversation today. But this was a better foundation, and maybe we'll have the EV and the transformation of the auto industry and how it's going to impact and accelerate things in the United States of America. The solution is twofold for the United States of America. Actually, it's threefold, but I'm gonna just talk about it being twofold. The first solution is to become less dependent, which we've been talking about for decades and decades, on foreign oil, which in the short term, they're saying pump more oil here in the United States of America. And the second solution is they want to become less dependent on oil within the United States of America at large. They haven't fully figured out how to solve for that because the government is notoriously slow and lethargic when it comes to coming up with solutions to being successful. Shout out to Trail Fest. That's Anton Dope Dealers doing it to pay for studio time. And you know what the funniest thing is? The most successful rappers don't even go to the studio. They don't go to the studio. They got a laptop. They got a little soundproof thing that they use. And they just record it straight onto their MacBook. Nah, y'all don't want to know. Y'all don't want to hear me. Let's go to the studio. You're wasting your money.
And by the way, for the climate folks here, it's made the climate worse because people had this bad assumption that high oil prices and gas prices will reduce consumption, reduce CO2. No, poor nations, India, China, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, are turning back on coal plants, as are rich nations called Germany, Netherlands, France. We have it completely backwards. And in my view, America should have been pumping more oil and gas, and it should have been supported. We're trying to have our cake and eat it too a little bit. And so you have
He literally just said what I just said.
You have the problem this winter, which it sounds like they've got enough supply to get through this winter, but we have a longer term problem now, which is the world is not producing enough oil and gas to reduce coal, make the transition, create security for people. So I would put it in a critical category.
So basically, he's literally just said what I just said. The solution is supposed to be twofold, based off of a lot of the different leaders that's in a position of power. And they're saying, yo, we need to pump more oil to bridge the gap behind the idea that we don't want the worst thing for us happening in the interim, and then working towards the real long-term solutions while we are no longer still being dependent on them in order to be able to survive. Even from a climate change perspective, they're saying, yo, they turning on a lot of these coal-fired plants again in order to be able to survive and endure through it. So the thing that we thought we was transitioning into, now that we're considering this war and everything that's happening, because it's literally roiling the markets all the way across the board, even if you're a tree hugger, right? Which I largely consider myself a tree hugger. I am a tree hugger. Not entirely, right? I'm not vegan. I'm more like vegetarian when it comes to being a tree hugger. Um, when you consider what's happening in the world, one little thing, such as a war, and which is not a little thing, but such as a war in Ukraine, can completely upend everything that we thought made sense from a financial perspective, even from a climate change perspective.
This should be treated almost as a matter of war at this point, not as nothing short of that. So, people don't be surprised. Like, I was not surprised at Nord Stream 1 being blown up. I wouldn't be surprised if it's another pipeline or a tanker in the wrong place. And people need to be prepared at this one. And obviously, America needs to play a real leadership role. America is the swing producer, not Saudi Arabia. And we should have gotten that right starting in March. It's almost too late to get it right because obviously these are longer term investments.
You know what's so funny? These type of people, they will never run for office. These type of people will never run for office. They know what they know. They are smart. Listen, if you get President Biden in the room with this guy will look at President Biden as a kindergartner from an intellectual perspective. He will look at President Biden as a kindergartner. If you look at how it is that he breaks things down without even trying, he don't need no cue cards. He's just talking. He's just like, yo, he naming off different countries. He just breaking it down. This guy, people that are in positions of power, although you don't hear from him a lot, they know what they know. And he's saying, listen, we should have got this right a long time ago. And this is how we should have done it. We are the swing state when it comes to producing oil, meaning that we have the reserves, we have the technology to be able to produce way more in order to ensure that we don't have any shortages or that we can control what happens. But now we decide that we want to do it, but it's too late because everything is already in flux.
Speaking of getting it right with regards to Saudi Arabia, President Biden was heavily criticized for his efforts in the Middle East, OPEC going ahead with their production cuts despite President Biden pushing against that. How would you say the Biden administration has handled things, and has Biden been strong enough?
I think they've done a good job.
He's not going to disrupt
the administration's done. And I think all of us need to focus more on growth agendas, which we...
Did you see how he strategically dodged that? Listen to what he just did. Let's rewind it a little bit. He dodged that question like a modern woman. Check it out.
I obviously don't agree with everything the administration's done. And I think all of us need to focus more on growth agendas, which we...
Hold on, let me rewind it one more time. I'm going to rewind it a little bit more so we can get there.
Administration has handled things, and has Biden...
Let me tell you why he's not... I'll get to that in a minute.
Been strong enough.
I think they've done a good job. I obviously don't agree with everything the administration's done. And I think all of us need to focus more on growth agendas, which we really don't do very much of.
Nah, he's not even going to speak on the administration no more. Hey, listen, I think we all need to focus on growth agendas.
But I think they've done a very good job coalescing the Western world, keeping it together around this war in Ukraine. And that's good. That needs to be sustained because this can go on for years. The notion this might end right away, I think, is a false notion. I think we should have and could have done more in oil and gas. I think, if you're an American leader, obviously you're going to deal with people that you may not want to deal with. I'm not talking about Saudi Arabia. FDR and Winston Churchill dealt with Stalin. And I think people are making a mistake to have butterflies and roses and stuff like that. That's not what this is. And obviously we should be working with Saudi Arabia. They've been a longtime ally. They are a producer of oil and gas. I don't know what the private conversations are. I do think that in the long run, they are...
Oh, you know what's going on.
Are better off aligning with America than with some of those other folks. And I think they probably know that, and I assume that was part of the president's conversation.
Let's take it back to...
If y'all can't see through this, and again, you got to be able to read between the lines in order to substantiate the real conversation that he's trying to communicate, right? First of all, we're very, very privileged in that he's agreed to have these conversations in the first place, because I think that it gives us a better look and a better perspective as to what these world leaders, and when I say world leaders, I'm not talking about the people that are the CEO, not the CEO, the people that are the political leaders. I'm talking about the CEOs, the board members, the people that are pulling the strings behind the scenes. that's really giving an informed look and decision as to how it is that we're supposed to be moving from a financial, from a war perspective, so on and so forth. He literally just told you, like, yo, let me be quiet. Let me be quiet.
You guys should remind people, it's still the American military that protects all that oil flow around the world, including the oil going to China.
It's the American military. So now, for you blackety blacks on a regular basis that always say, well, we always giving money and stuff to these other countries. You know what the number one thing I hear from these idiots a lot of times that don't understand how money works? They say stuff like, look at all of the money that we spent on the military. We need to pull that back and then pour it more into the black community. For what? So y'all can go and buy more Escalades and Cadillacs and drive it on y'all mama's lawns? They don't give a... Man, listen. The military is necessary. It controls everything. We invest in our military because the military is the one that determines where everything is being pushed and what's going where, including what the oil markets are doing across the entire globe. Why would we not invest in the military? Because you don't even understand how having that strong hand is the determining factor for where the money goes. It determines who your allies are. It determines your level of power. It's a preventative measure. And in so many different ways that even I can't even possibly fathom. But you think defunding the military in order to pour it into you and your community is going to make a difference? Bro, we control the whole world through the military. What are you talking about? Jesus Christ.
I want to just circle back to your initial
Listen what he said. Hold on, let me rewind.
Russia, Ukraine.
I do think that dealt with Stalin. You know, and I think people are making a mistake to have butterflies and roses and stuff like that. That's not what this is. And obviously, we should be working with Saudi Arabia. They've been a longtime ally. You know, they are a producer of oil and gas. I don't know what the private conversations are. I do think that in the long run, they are far better off aligned with America than with some of those other folks. And I think they probably know that, and I would assume that was part of the president's conversation.
Let's take it back to markets.
I mean, I should remind people, it's still the American military that protects all that oil flow around the world, including the oil going to China.
It's still the American military that protects all of that oil going around in the world, including the oil that is going to China.
I want to just circle back to your initial comments around Russia, Ukraine. You seem particularly concerned about this war and its impact. Do you see Putin using tactical nuclear weapons?
I couldn't possibly comment on that any more than you know. So, yeah.
You know.
And if you could...
He kept that answer short, though, didn't he?
One comment I will make, nuclear proliferation is still the greatest threat to mankind. Okay? If we're not sitting here in 200 years, it'll be because of nuclear proliferation. And I do think, this is an example that how important it is. And I think Putin also taught the world that having a nuclear weapon gives you pretty much authority to bully any neighbor you want.
And they cut that interview off immediately, and they let that go. Anyways, listen, we need to be a lot more mindful. The point that I wanted to make in this live stream, and again, I put the link in YouTube, and I allow for people to be able to come up here, but nobody got any questions, so I'm cool with that. The point that I wanted to make in this live stream specifically, and I need to go to the building because I got some deliveries coming today. As a matter of fact, let me see something. Let me check that. Point that I wanted to make today specifically was that we need to be more proactive and stop rejecting the thing that is best for us, because when somebody gives us a level of information, you don't always have to agree with it, but you need to understand it so that you can make a more informed decision for yourself. We are going to be successful. We are going to win all the way across the board. We are going to be great. And then on top of that, we're going to make sure that we get to the bag and that we live a life of abundance by taking advantage of the fact that other people refused to participate in the thing that was best for them. That's just a fact. Everybody wanted to have a conversation about what they wanted, and nobody wanted to have a conversation about what was best. And what's best for you is making a decision to do the thing that is going to make sure that your pocketbook is taken care of, because nobody is going to be happy when everybody is broke. Nobody's going to be happy when things are broke. All right. So listen, I love you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you for rocking with me. Let me update the link in the chat for y'all to be able to join the Patreon, because we are running it up. I got more Patreon exclusives. Actually, the next video that I drop is going to be a Patreon exclusive video that allows for you to level up as a regular everyday folk and become super successful. All right. If you have any questions, make sure you email me at antondaniels413@gmail.com. We're going to get you scheduled for a Zoom session or a personal phone call. And then in addition to that, make sure that you hit a like for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. I love you. I appreciate you. I thank you guys for continuing to rock with me day in and day out. You are the most awesome, phenomenal people that I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm going to holler at you later. I need you to do me one more thing before we get up out of here, though. Make sure you share this with your family and friends. We don't want to be successful and rich by ourselves. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you for tapping in. Anton from AntonDaniels.com on behalf of the Bag Chasers saying, another day, another show in the can. I love y'all. I'm going to holler at y'all later. Peace.